Hi guys, Tom here. This has been a real thorn in my side for a while now, and I thought I'd cover it since I think I found a solution for my bike. So this is my 125cc Boom Vader motorcycle. It's a Grom Clone motorcycle. Although it's a clone of a Grom, it's not an exact match of a Grom. As a result, if you were trying to reduce the vibrations and make the engine more solid in the frame, you end up buying a Grom third mount. Well, as you can see, the holes do not match up, and that was to be expected. When I go online, I find different solutions as far as trying to make this part match up to the bottom of the engine. And today, it looks like I finally found a solution on how to match up to my bike, and maybe this will help you as far as trying to match up to your bike. So let's look at some of the pieces and parts that come with it. Here's the actual mount. There's the top part of the clamp that attaches to the frame. A spacer. There will be a couple of these spacers that come in. A bolt that actually mounts between the plate and the engine. And then smaller screws that actually hold the clamp in place on the frame. Now most of these parts work, I presume, for a Grom, but like I said, this is a Grom clone, so it's not a perfect match. So what I thought of doing was inverting this so that the plate was closer to the engine, but these spaces right here are too close to the exhaust. So I went with the traditional installation where you still have access to the clamp screws from the bottom and then try to find holes that lined up. I did not find any holes that lined up, so I had to drill these two holes. And using these two holes and some additional parts from the hardware store, I'm able to get this plate mounted. And that's what I'm going to do now. And I'll show you the additional parts I picked up. Here we are looking at the bottom side of the engine. You can see there are some pre-existing mount holes. And then the frame runs left and right. And the idea was to take this third mount, clamp it to the frame, and then line up one of those pre-existing holes to the prefabricated holes that are in the plate. However, this is not a perfect match for this engine because it's not a perfect clone of a Grom. So I needed to drill additional holes. And the idea was to try to get at least two of these holes to line up underneath the plate so I can drill holes through them. So what I did was I mounted the third plate with the backer and the 6 screws, took one of the screws that are designed to mount to the engine, placed it in where it should be. With the third mount in place, I tapped it with a hammer to create a small circle mark in the metal plate. With a center punch, I marked the center of that hole and then I drilled some holes through the metal. And I repeated it for the second hole. Now one lines up perfectly with one of the holes in the engine. The other one, the plate, doesn't have a lot of meat on it. So I had to be really off center. As you can see, that hole is very large and off to the side when I was trying to line it up. Now with these unusual holes, obviously the screws included with the kit were not perfect matches. The screws have small heads on them and I wanted something to have a little bit more meat to kind of hold this plate in place once I mount it to the engine. So I went to the hardware store and I got new bolts and washers. Now these bolts will go into the engine and space out as much force over the metal to try to prevent any wear and tear or tearing the metal apart. I have 2 screws on both sides, and what I'm going to do today is actually mount this third mount. So I'm going to use the backer plate, the third mount, and one of the screws it came with. Sorry for the angle. The idea is just to get one of these screws in place so we can prep the other screws with some thread locker. I'll take one of the kit screws, put a little thread locker on there, and start installing them one by one. Now we'll take out the original screw. We'll put some thread locker on there. They're kind of dry fit. They're not to the final tightness. What we're going to do is move the plate, line up the engine mount bolts. So the first bolt I'm sticking in is about 35 millimeters long. We're going to use washers to bridge the gap between the mount and the engine. First washer going on is a large washer, which will go onto the bolt. And the large washer on the opposite side. Then we have smaller washers. 3 small washers. Now remember, this is not exact science, so you do whatever you need to do in order to match it up to your engine. And then we're going to use the last large washer to line up. All right, so it is lined up. Now for the final prep, you can spray the holes with some like carb cleaner or some brake cleaner to make sure there's no oil or grime in there. Then we're going to put some thread locker on the bolt. And then I'm going to finish it off with a wrench. So these bolts happen to be 13 millimeters, so just finish off with a wrench. We're not going to get this super tight yet because we still have one additional bolt that needs to go on. So with everything still loose, I'm going to install the final bolt. Has a washer, thread locker. We use one of these spacers that came with the kit. And then now we're going to tighten these down. So the final step is just tighten everything down. Now with these bolts tightened down, now we'll tighten down these last 6 little screws. That's it. So all 6 clamp bolts are tightened down. These engine mount bolts are clamped down. And then we're done with the installation. Third mount's on. Everything's nice and tight. I'm going to get this bike ready to go out for a ride. Now, if you have any comments, feedback, or stories to share with your customization of your motorcycle, please leave them in the comment section below. And thanks for watching. See you on the road.